Welcome back to another episode. Today we're diving into a hot topic. Can content generated by DeepSeek AI actually be copyrighted?
Yeah, it's a big one. As more people use AI tools like DeepSeek to create blogs, stories, even research, who really owns that content?
According to the article, DeepSeek's terms explicitly state that users are responsible for how the generated content is used. That's already a red flag for copyright claims.
Exactly. If the platform itself says they don't guarantee copyright protection, that puts the pressure on users. But what does that really mean?
It likely means if you try to register the content under your name, you might run into trouble, especially if someone else generated something similar.
Right. Because AI models like DeepSeek generate content based on existing data. So the originality aspect gets muddy.
And originality is key in copyright law. If it's not independently created, courts might not see it as protected.
What I found interesting is how they compared it to a paintbrush. DeepSeek is just a tool, like Photoshop or a pen. But is it really the same?
That's the tricky part. Traditional tools don't suggest ideas or write paragraphs for you. DeepSeek does.
So is the user still the author if the tool is doing 90% of the thinking?
Legally, maybe not, especially if the user is just prompting and copying the output with no changes.
And that opens a can of worms for content creators. Bloggers, marketers, people relying on AI might think they own what they're publishing.
But if two users enter similar prompts and get nearly identical outputs, who gets to claim ownership?
Probably neither. Courts might say it's not copyrightable at all. It's like two photographers taking the same stock photo. It's generic.
The article also points out that even if DeepSeek says you own the output, that doesn't guarantee legal protection.
That's a big distinction. Owning a file doesn't mean you own its copyright.
And platforms often include clauses that free them from liability. So if someone sues you, you're on your own.
That's risky. Imagine publishing a whole ebook using AI, then someone challenges your rights over it.
You'd have to prove that you contributed original input, maybe structure, context, edits that made it uniquely yours.
Which brings us to a real gray area. What counts as enough human input?
Yeah, is editing a few words enough? Or do you need to rewrite entire sections to make it copyright eligible?
I'd argue it depends on how much creative decision-making you bring to the table.
But proving that can be tough. It's not like you're painting a picture by hand.
And yet, some argue that prompting is a form of creativity. Choosing the right questions, refining outputs, that takes skill.
True, but courts still look for tangible human authorship. Skill alone might not cut it.
So maybe the safest path is using AI as a co-pilot, not the entire plane.
Use it to brainstorm, draft, ideate, but always add your voice.
Otherwise, you risk creating something no one can truly own or protect.
And then what? Someone scrapes your AI-written article and republishes it. Can you sue?
Probably not successfully, especially if you can't prove original authorship.
It's ironic, isn't it? The easier it becomes to generate content, the harder it gets to defend it.
That's the price of automation, I guess. Convenience versus control.
Another takeaway from the article is how global laws aren't consistent either. What's protected in one country might not be in another.
That adds another layer of uncertainty for creators operating internationally.
And DeepSeek is based in Hong Kong, where copyright law follows different standards from, say, the US.
So even if DeepSeek's terms give you some usage rights, they don't necessarily mean global copyright protection.
Makes me wonder how future regulations will address AI-generated content.
Hopefully, with more clarity. Right now, it's a legal minefield.
Until then, the safest route is transparency. Disclose AI usage, add your own input, and keep your expectations realistic.
And maybe don't rely on AI for high-stakes content, at least not without a human rewrite.
Agreed. AI is a powerful tool, but it's not a shortcut to authorship.
Or ownership. And that distinction matters now more than ever.
So, what do you think? Should AI-generated content ever qualify for copyright?
Tough question. Maybe when human input reaches a certain threshold. But defining that threshold, That's the real challenge.
Let's leave our listeners with that thought. How much of your content do you actually create?
And how much are you just curating what the machine gives you?
Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time with more on tech, law, and the wild world in between.
Until then, stay curious and creative.